Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Thriving Writers podcast. This is Mary Cole, even though I sound like a toad who is being run over by a semi truck at the moment. But with me, I have your last name. I realize that I've never actually
No, I
spoken
think
it
we
out
should
loud.
leave it in. I think we should leave this part in because I do answer to everything. So no matter how someone pronounces it, I will answer.
Coccia, Coccia,
Yeah, I say gotcha like gotcha,
Coccia.
and then people get it. But I've also had people say, no, you need to stress the C's more, like Puccini. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
not in Canada. It doesn't work. Not in the States either. You sound awful.
Okay. So what
You
makes
say
this funny is
croissant
that
here, Mary.
Paul and I have been working together for like 3 years now. And I've realized I have no idea how to say your last name because I've only ever seen it written. And to me, you're just Paul. So,
And my mom has one of those great maiden names, Weaver. That's
yeah.
the easiest thing in the world. I'm like, why didn't you keep your maiden name, Mom? Why weren't you a feminist that way?
Well, okay. So you are a Canadian, Italian inflected. Tell us just about yourself. You are an author. You are one of our partners at Bittersweet Books. We have a number of projects that we've done with you, but why don't we hear it from the horse's mouth?
Sure, I am Canadian. My dad was born in Italy, as you mentioned, and came to Canada as an immigrant, a very poor immigrant. His dad died, which they intended to go back to Italy. They did not like Canada, but when his father died, they remained here. My mom is the daughter of a woman who divorced in the 50s.
Ooh.
I know. It's like we're breaking rules all over in this family. They've just done a really good job, but they were of British descent, so that's kind of interesting that they would have come here, I guess, as in close to indentured servants. Uh,
Okay.
so they came over when it was like you are labor, and I'm going,
Yeah.
okay, so I'm from a family of workers. I know that. uh,
But you are an author and you have a number of projects, including one that I have been tangentially involved with. So please tell us
oh
about
yeah,
your
Mary.
literary legacy.
You have so little involvement with we worked together on recommended reading, and we've worked together on a few other things, which has been amazing. Recommended reading is a young adult novel about Bobby, who is a fat gay teenager who kind of epically ruins his chance at love and his college future all in one go.
He's an overachiever in that way.
Yeah, he's just, everything has to be extra, and that had to be extra too. And he ends up working in a bookstore where he has the ability to match the right book with the right person, except when it comes to him.
Mm-hmm. And
And then,
he sort of uses his powers for good and also to flirt
and metal. He's got
and
a
meddle.
real I love
Yes.
Lucy quality to him.
So, for some of you who have not maybe heard me talk a lot about Bittersweet Books, I've started talking about it more because I feel like people have these ideas about what book packaging is, book packaging isn't. I work with my business partners, John Cusick from Folio Literary. He's a literary agent, and also the amazing Julie Murphy, who is a New York Times bestselling author of Dumplin' and If the Shoe Fits, all of these wonderful books. And she came to John and myself and said, I would love to collaborate. I have more ideas than I know what to do with. And Paul, you probably know this, but Bobby and recommended reading was the first idea that Julie floated when we got together and started working on Bittersweet. It was sort of the first thing. She sent us this 5-page document of ideas that she didn't have a home or time for. And Bobby was number one. First bullet point. It was the first thing that we developed. It was the first thing that we really outlined. And then we matched Paul to that project, and it was just the absolute perfect fit. It ended up selling to Zando, and it has just been, we celebrated it in New Orleans together at the Children's Institute. In June, last June, they Zando threw this big bookseller dinner, and it has just been such a joy to go from sort of the very earliest days of my involvement in Bittersweet to launching this book into the world. It just came out in January, and just to see it come so beautifully full circle, and there is nobody that could have done that story justice other than you. You are just phenomenal to work with.
I mean, I knew it was a gift. And I knew, I think I also came into the first meeting with everyone and was, I know who Bobby is. But I did know who he was. And maybe not the best thing to walk into a meeting and tell people who you would like to work with, I know your idea better than you do.
No, not at all. In fact, so we have worked kind of behind the scenes on another project with Paul. Paul came in to consult on some kind of drag 1950s history and perspectives. And we are also developing another potential, fingers crossed, early stages project with Paul. And one of the things that I admire about you actually is your deep ability to just get into a character and understand a character. You come prepared with pages and pages of either research or background or questions that you've developed. You come with a bunch of sort of clarifying ideas. Like once you have something, you have a sense of the character, you almost don't let go until you are satisfied in your understanding, and not just a superficial understanding, but a multi-layered understanding of that character. I would really love to inhabit your head and figure out what your process is. How do you come up with not only your insights that you bring to meetings like that, because I actually really appreciate someone who's like, no, I know this character, right? I would much rather work with a writer who feels a sense of ownership already, even in a first meeting. But how do you come up with those early insights when you come to a project? How do you come up with the questions that you ask to get to know a character better?
For me, getting to know the character is like getting to know a person. It's what do I find interesting about that person? And I saw that you do this, Mary, or you recommended doing this. You throw out first pages and do a complete blank rewrite. And I've done that. And whenever I've said it to other authors who I think are less confident in what they do, they keep trying to make something work that's not going to. I'm like, throw it away and start over. And
Hmm.
their eyes, their faces go blank, and I'm going, it's not because you haven't worked hard. The important stuff comes back. And I believe in it. It comes
Oh,
back
I love
stronger.
that. You
Yeah,
just made a t-shirt slogan.
well, it's true. What matters will come back to you, and you will not forget it. The stuff that, like, what do they call it, the chaff from the
Yeah,
wheat,
the wheat from
that
the
will
chaff.
fall
Yeah.
away. So I always write, I do that, and I'll do that 20, 30 times on a first chapter, which throw, I know, I see your eyes doing it, but I can tell when the character's voice isn't right. And when I get to that point where it's like draft 25, the character kind of has a moment with me where it's like, you got me. You understand who I am now. And then it becomes really easy to write because the character starts dictating the actions. You know when something's out of character. You know the character would never do that. And um, TJ, the poor editor at Zando, got from me more than once. And I think you were there, Mary, where I said,
Yeah.
no, he would not do that. That is not in his character. And I'll tell you why it's not in his character. But it makes your choices as an author for plotting really easy when you understand the essence of who they are and the foundation you built that character on.
So it's sort of like method acting a little bit. You inhabit the character, or you understand, you empathize with the character to such a degree that it's not like you're making the choices
Yeah.
sometimes. It's like you're just gut checking against what you know of the character, and it sticks out if you're being asked to do something, or if it's in the outline. Because what's challenging about working with a packaged project is, we sent you an outline. And at Bittersweet, because we are very author centric, author led, we give you freedom. At some point, this is your book. You take the baton, you inhabit Bobby, and you run with it. But if you have source material, it can be, I'd imagine, kind of difficult to square, the outline that you're given and your burgeoning understanding of the story.
But it's also a really fun challenge. It's like someone giving you a puzzle and you're going, I know the pieces will make a picture, but I have to figure out which one goes here. And every once in a while you go, oh, I thought that went up in the upper right corner. No, it goes right in the center. So that can be kind of fun because as a writer, it's how do I stretch myself? I like to be challenged. I like to try new things. Um, I don't like stagnating. It becomes very boring for me. So in each project, I do think, what am I going to bring that's new here? What am I going to do that's different from the last time? What will I do that's the same as last time? Because some things just work. But you talked about process too, and I have conversations with the character when I travel. So if I'm driving or I'm walking the dogs or doing something, I'll work out, and usually that dialogue ends up being really good. So by the time I get home, it's kind of like the throwing out your first pages again. That dialogue, when I actually get down the page, I'm like, I don't need to change it too much. I've worked it out. I've had the same conversation over and over with them. I know how they'd react in a situation.
Yeah. I cannot recommend back brain work enough. And what I mean is, your body is doing something in space, showering, driving, walking the dogs, whatever. But you let your mind sort of add a problem while doing something else. It's very rarely, I find, that when we sit down at the page and we're like, "Ugh," trying to squeeze out the answer, that the answer comes. Often it comes when we're doing something completely different.
It's like, yeah, it's like who wants a hemorrhoid? I don't need to work this hard at that one. I can just sit here and read the paper.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it's true. It's you sometimes the act of doing something else just takes the pressure off. I also think people need to give themselves permission to write garbage. You can edit something into a better form, but if you don't have anything on the page, you don't have anything to edit.
Yeah. And it really does seem, from working with you, like for you, editing is an iterative process. You talk about 25 drafts of the first chapter, for example, right?
And not
So,
everything is like that. Like sometimes I'm like, I got the voice in the first go. Like I've had this character sitting in my brain so long that he's coming out now or she's coming out and that's it. And other times the character is a gift. Like Gladys was a gift in recommended reading. I think my instructions were crotchety old coworker.
yep, yep.
And I just thought to myself, this
She
is
ends
my
up being kind of
wheelhouse.
a frenemy. She's the cashier who's been working at the bookstore forever, and Bobby comes in and is, Bobby, and they just do not see eye to eye for the longest time until they do.
Well, and I also think as a writer, if you're gonna ask a reader to commit and fall in love with your characters, you better give them every reason on the page to. It can't just exist in your brain, which is what I see a lot of people go through when they're working out a manuscript and going, okay, all the things you told me as a friend about the work, you didn't write down.
Mm.
So they do exist in the back of your head, but if the reader's not a mind reader, they're a book reader.
You're just full of these amazing slogans. So how do you, this is something that I see a lot of writers struggle with as well. And Paul is very plugged into a community of writers. He's such a generous kind of mentor and peer. And so you also probably see this a lot, but it's like, yeah, if I have my best intentions internally, how do you create a character who is engaging and relatable and generous on the page? How do you encourage that reader engagement when you write?
So with Bobby, it was interesting because I knew he could get out of hand and become really annoying to the reader. He's over the top, and that's a hard person to process. So you do have to think about the moments when that character drops that facade, who they are to the outside world.
Mm.
And that's where interiority, and I know you have a book on this, Mary. Is it behind you? Oh, there it is. Interiority is so important for letting the reader into the vulnerabilities. And I do think the vulnerabilities are some of the most attractive qualities of a person and a character. Um, I do have a friend who performs, and their persona is amazing. Very glamorous, very polished. But when the persona drops, when they take all that off and they're in their apartment eating pizza, standing over the thing, I'm going, there's something real about you, and that I can connect to. I admire the glamour and the glitz, but I connect with the real person eating the cold pizza.
Absolutely. And I feel like even a prickly character, even an annoying character like Bobby, who is,
He's
a
not
lot to
annoying
take.
actually in the end. Like he's very endearing. Do love him.
Yes. No, absolutely. But I mean, a character with normal flaws, normal foibles, they don't have to show that inner kind of marrow, the quivering, vulnerable, real self to anyone in the story until they break open. Oftentimes, this does rise to the surface, but if they are able to access that for the reader and to let the reader in, that's a really powerful engagement strategy.
And that interior monologue, it's if you actually were in their head, would they be hiding it from themselves? And if so, why? And a lot of the questions I ask of characters to get into them are why? Why would they do that? Why would they not do this other thing?
Yeah. And like I was saying, you ask so many questions and such good questions. Are there so why is great. Are there any other things that you've really found help you understand a story, a plot point, a character detail, a relationship?
So, I will. There's a few things that if we're going to give concrete tips, I keep a post it of all the things I love about the character beside me as I write.
Oh,
And that way, if I'm ever stuck about something and the scene's not working or the character is not jiving, I refer to that. And I think when you're working with a character who's from a community that maybe you're going to get backlash on,
mm-hmm.
I'm a little bit belligerent. I'm like, I'm going to make you love them. I am I'm a Jennifer Holiday. I'm a Jennifer Hudson. You are going to love them. I'm not going to give you a choice because then you don't have room to argue with the character. You, if you hate them, it's a superficial thing. That's fine, but the character is who they are. So I do the post-it. I also like a cheat sheet of physical markers,
Okay.
um, and that's just to keep things straight. So I know that my character on page one, they have blue eyes. They don't have brown eyes by page 131. So there's things like that.
So the copy editors love him. One simple trick.
Um, Grab a calendar for plotting, which I learned this from Eric Walters, who I co-wrote a book with. Grab a calendar because that's so useful. It's also useful when you plan promotion to know what you're going to do and when, whether it's social media, whether it's a live event. So, but when you're plotting out, and we had a calendar for this, it becomes very easy to decide if you're moving around an event in a story where I can actually put it. And it does other
Yeah.
very practical things like I don't have 8 Saturdays in a month, which when you're writing for kids, a lot of their time is spent in school. So you do have to manage when they have that sort of autonomy and time to themselves.
Oh, that's such a good point. Yeah, and I remember your calendar from the early kind of planning stages
I never
because
showed you the map. It was very badly drawn, but I needed to also understand the town.
the town. So, recommended reading takes place in this like really cute Stars Hollow-esque college town. There's a literary festival, and we are sort of bridging the time period between when Bobby graduates, or actually shortly before graduation is when the story starts to we're sort of rising to this literary festival that I believe happens at the end of the summer. So
Yeah.
we had a lot of time to play with. But that's a really great point about middle grade and young adult that I should have thought of at some point in the last 15 years. But afternoons and weekends are really when you get that proactive, liberated character time.
Well, and you can create it in other ways within the school. There's just ways. When I was taught this, it was always called the problem of the parent. So, how do you get
Yep.
the adults that control out of the picture? One way is to kill them, which is why
Yeah,
there's a
that's
lot
why
of
there's
orphans.
so many dead parents left and right, just littered with in middle grade and young adult.
It is very hard to get a good parent written in, but the people who manage it, those are usually the most memorable parents in or adults in a book because they provide the child protagonist with enough autonomy that they can make decisions and they can have their own world and they have their own agency, but they also are present enough that they're not a neglectful parent.
Yeah. Uh, on the flip side, I find a lot of middle grade and young adult writers try to maybe reparent themselves with the parents that they write by writing amazing parents, just so supportive and perfect in every way and just accepting, and there's never any conflict. That to me always struck me as a little bit wrong, because even if people love and support each other, they have conflict. They push each other's buttons.
Oh yeah, it's why didn't you pick up your socks? They've been there every day for the last week, and it's driving me up the wall.
My son, my middle son Finn, the first thing he does when he enters the home is he takes his pants off, because he is related to me, and
I love that.
if I don't have to wear pants, am I wearing pants right now? Nobody knows. But Finn just sheds his pants. And so I live in an environment where there are just pants everywhere. He never picks them up, but he will shed them and just leave them anywhere. So that's our household.
Well, I know my friend told me this, and I love it. With his partner, well, his ex-partner, the two of them fought every day that they since they moved in together about who plugged their toothbrush into the top plug. And I thought, I knew you were going to break up, but
I was gonna say, yeah, the ex-partner detail doesn't surprise me there.
no, but I just thought, isn't that the way it is? It's like this really, and they never spoke about it, which was the other interesting thing. They just unplugged the one person's and plugged their own in. So it was a silent battle. I kind
Oh
of
my
love it. I'd
gosh.
love to write into a book, but he does read my books.
I think that's amazing. Yeah, my husband's personal bugaboo is my kids always say how much when they mean how many. And I don't know why this bothers Todd so much, but at random intervals, I'll just hear him bellow, "How many?" from from downstairs, because someone's like, "Oh, how much pancakes did you give me?" Whatever.
My nephew, and I noticed this when he was doing the online schooling, when physical schools you weren't allowed in,
Yeah.
kids would say things, and he was the kid who would be like, "That's not a question. You told me you'd be asking a question." He's like, "That's a statement." I'm like, wow, you can tell there's a writer in the house.
Very precise. You words have meaning. So tell me about some of your other books. I would obviously love to glorify recommended reading to the
I
ends
mean,
of
we
the earth.
can. So
What?
we can. We could just sit here for an hour and make it the recommended reading podcast.
I know, but tell me about your other books. You've had individual books, you've had a co-written book, middle
Yeah.
grade, young adult, correct?
Yeah, I've moved around, and up in Canada, we have Orca Books, who I've worked with quite a few times. They do low literacy books, which are really interesting. It's not what I imagined I'd write, but it was a way into the industry. Had a great editor, and you learn a lot by being put through your paces on a book that short. You don't have room to hide, you don't have room for sloppiness. You need to get your character down on the first page, if not the first sentence and paragraph, really quickly for the reader. But you're also always keeping in mind that these are readers who will put down the book really
Yeah.
easily. And so you're always thinking about reader engagement. So they're a great training ground to really hone your skills and go, okay, I can do this. If I can do it short, I can sustain it longer. So I wrote, my first one was called Cub, which was about a fat teen baker who enters a cooking competition in Toronto, where I'm from, and a celebrity chef kind of makes him an offer for his career that comes with strings, but he
Yeah.
wants those strings. So it was very interesting because once I pitched it and they accepted it, within 2 weeks the Weinstein scandals came out.
Oh no.
No, it was great. It was like, oh great, marketing's on my side.
Very, very timely. Horrible for the victims, very timely for Paul.
Yeah, I'm not saying it was good for anyone who went through things, but for me, God, what a marketing gift.
It's called the silver lining, people.
And I thought it was interesting because it did make me think about that story in a way of, well, what makes my voice different in the conversation if I'm going to add to the conversation? So I did think about my responsibility as an author that way. And one of the things that was interesting for me was the idea of being complicit. and the character knowing what he's doing, the main character, that
Yeah.
he's not being taken advantage of. He knows what's happening and he wants it. So it became a very interesting way to approach that character.
Yeah, you have to figure out somebody else's morality and kind of sense of value system, right? Is success more valuable to a character than, let's say, dignity or boundaries or, all of these other kind of ephemeral foundational elements?
Yeah, and that character was, I'm being offered on the surface everything I could want, including this hot guy.
Yeah.
And I get his attention. And part of that character that was always interesting to me was the inexperience. It was, he didn't know enough to want better, which is one of my younger brother's things he said to people dating. Um, he said it to a friend's new boyfriend and it was just such a nasty thing. I was like, he looks at him and goes, "Sweetie, trust me, I'm old and I'm a drag queen." And I'm like, "Oh, here it comes."
Oh no.
He goes,
Buckle in.
he looks good to you today, but you need to learn to want better for yourself in life. And I went, wow, pulls no
I
punches.
I want this kind of drag queen following me around on a daily basis and just,
No, it's
slapping
awful.
me into the perspective.
Oh no, it's absolutely awful because you're like, oh no, he's going to tell me the truth. I don't want to hear it. Let me just live in my fantasy.
No, I need it. I At this point in my life, I'm, the blushes off the rose. Just give it to me straight. Just save me 6 months of delusion, please.
I'm just like, no, I live in fantasy in my books. I want to live a little in my real life.
Aw.
I kind of connected with Bobby that way. I'm like, oh, he really wants to live in this romance fantasy. I get that. Books are
Yeah.
the perfect vehicle for that.
Absolutely, and I mean, there's such a swath of, like, bookish books, right? Books set in bookstores and libraries and about bookish people for obvious reasons. But I think that kind of metafiction is a really cozy, enveloping, like, warm blanket of a book, and that's definitely what recommended reading is on some level.
Yeah. And well, you asked about the other books.
Yes, I know. We're back to recommended reading. Gosh darn it.
Um, well, for good reason. um, I wrote, but it was published third, the book with Eric Walters. It's called On the Line. And I know Julie has written a book with similar subject matter, which I won't give a spoiler for anyone, but you should read her middle grades. Um, it's about a basketball star, which Eric knows basketball really well. And his dad comes out, and they're in a small town. We based it off of a town about 45 minutes from Toronto, where the car plant was closing.
Ugh,
So
yeah.
it was just one of those things where it's like we took a hyper masculine world, and kind of played with that and how the son connects with the father and what it means to be a man. Um, and there's one of my favorite characters who's Brody, who's the dad's new boyfriend in that book, that at first Eric was not convinced about writing together. He was just like, I don't know about this one. And I kept giving him an argument for it. And finally I said to him, well, I just need to write him. And he goes, okay, that's all you need to say. He's like, as a writer, I get it. Like, you told me you
Yeah.
need it, you need to do it. And he's like, just be prepared that when we edit, you might have to cut your darling. And I went, that's fine. So that was a character where I have to convince someone, and someone very directly that has control over this project as well, because we've agreed that it's a 50-50 deal. So
Yeah.
I need to make him love him. It's like I need to pull it's the Jennifer Hudson thing all over.
I love it. Do you think that, because I noticed that you have another book, The Player, do you think that, at least in this low literacy or kind of younger or shorter space that you were writing in, sports were a part of it to make it appeal to some of those maybe more reluctant readers?
Well, I kind of for the teen books I threw in sex. I always think of myself as Madonna at the back of the bus in The League of Their Own. And I said this to Jason Reynolds recently, and I'm like, "You're Madonna too, Jason." Like he needed to be told.
Right.
But I think one of them was The Player is a Hockey Book, and I just thought that's really interesting as a Canadian to explore this. And I'm not a sports person, um, but I am a literary theory person. And this is where I'm going to get like really geeky on everyone.
Oh, please.
Northrop Frye has a theory in Shakespearean drama, which is the theory of the green world. So I will explain it, and it sounds complicated. So you can sound smart if you're talking. The listeners can sound super smart at dinner later and be like, Northrop Frye's theory of the green world. And in it, it's basically in A Midsummer Night's Dream. The young characters need to go off to the woods, which is literally the green world. It's a woods.
Yes.
And they, in that world, all the rules don't apply. So they're able to work through their issues of society where the rules are very rigid. And when they emerge from the green world, they've played, they've experimented, they've made mistakes, but they've grown. So they're able to reintegrate back into the society as fruitful, productive members of it. So it is that kind of adolescence could be that green world. If you
Yeah.
look at, and I always say, if you think about like Where the Wild Things Are, he can't stare at his wall angrily for 28 pages. It's a boring book. He has to go where the wild things are. For the
Yeah.
child reader, the benefit, or the child protagonist, not the reader, but the reader as well. The benefit of the green world is those characters need a chance to grow, and they need a chance to be out from under. Kids are under a lot of control. Their
Yeah.
teachers tell them what to do, their parents tell them what to do, their siblings tell them what to do. They're always getting these rules, and it's how do you give them that space? And I think sports was in those two books was a way of giving those kids a world of their own and creating a system where they could start playing and creating and making mistakes.
That's really, really interesting. And for some reason, it made me think of Midsommar, but the like initial drug trip fun Midsommar before it got really crazy, right? You separate from society, you go, you have this transformative experience. You might call it the hero cycle, right?
I
Because the
mean, it
hero
does play
cycle,
into that. I love Joseph Campbell. We could have a whole thing on lit theory. I am a geek for it.
I mean, I love it, and clearly you are enriched by it. You do what you do so well because you apply all of these incredible ideas to it. But yeah, the hero cycle ends as the hero, having gone on their journey, re-enters society. Midsommar goes off,
And
you know,
yeah,
out of left field with that.
one thing that's interesting that I love about the hero journey and Joseph Campbell was he talks about, and I don't think it gets enough focus on what's left behind when the hero
Mm,
leaves the hero's journey. So when they're coming back out, like, do they leave behind their magical tools? What can they carry with them out of that world, and what can't they? And then I also like to think about who can't leave that world. So Peter Pan's a great example that people know of a character who can't leave the green world. Peter Pan
yeah,
can't leave Neverland; he'll stop existing. Bridge to Terabithia is another one. She has to die. Sorry, everyone. She had
spoiler
to
alert.
die for literary reasons. She couldn't leave that world. She couldn't translate out of Terabithia.
That's so interesting. You are such a joy.
It's like I've just like ruined the listenership. They're like, I don't know what he's saying.
No, it's the green world hero with a thousand faces, Bridge to Terabithia, Neverland, and I'm gonna tack on Midsommar because for some reason I'm stuck on it right
We
now.
can throw in some queer theory too and really make people's heads spin. I'll be like Judith Butler. Who doesn't want to talk about Judith Butler?
Which is why we have actually brought you on to consult on this other project. Can't go into much more detail about that, but you have this just rich and varied knowledge base. How do you supplement it? Are you always reading? Do you consume other media? Kind of what is your professional and self development schedule?
It sounds like I'm more rigid than I am. I'm very
No.
curious.
Yeah.
I like to like there if something is a question for me, I like to know the answer. So like when I was working with Eric, he said something about muffins and cupcakes. I'm like, no, they're different, Eric. And he's like, how are they different? I'm like, well, tell me how you think they're the same, and then I'll tell you how they're actually different. um, but it was one of those things that because I bake a lot, I was like, well, what makes them different? So I went and looked it up, and until I'm satisfied with an answer that makes sense to me, I just don't stop. But I used to watch a lot of TV, and I don't anymore, and I love TV. I just gave it up 5 years ago. It just worked out that way.
Yeah.
So I will watch very little TV. When I'm writing, I don't consume a lot of media unless it's very different from what I'm doing. So when I wrote recommended reading, which was a rom com, every night I like to work at night. So I'd usually write till 2 or 3 in the morning, and then
Oh
I
my
go
goodness.
watch true crime.
I was gonna say, what is the polar opposite of romantic comedy? It's true crime.
And there's this great series on Netflix of murder scenes. So they did like the Texas killing fields. But I was like, what a great lesson in how to create setting that really enables character. Because it was all about why was this the perfect killing ground? And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense to me as a writer. Why was it?
As a sidebar, I was watching the Menendez brothers thing on Netflix, and
My
my
younger brother is obsessed with them because my dad has the awful habit, since we were little, of turning on a horror film or turning on true crime, and he'll go to sleep and just left us to watch it. So,
well, I was gonna say my 9-year-old came upstairs and he was like, "Oh, what you watching?" And he sees like a courtroom scene, nothing inflammatory. He's like, "Oh, murder shows." So that tells you the media I consume. And I really do attribute at least 50% of my personal dysfunction to the fact that when I was 8 or 9, my dad let me watch Fargo,
oh,
like with the wood chipper,
yeah.
and he just thought that was okay media for a fourth grader.
I think also my dad has that thing. So he let me watch The Three Faces of Eve, that old movie. And I loved it because there was Eve White, who was the goody goody, hated her. But there was
Yeah.
Eve Black, who did all the bad stuff. She was really fun. And then she'd be like, Eve White can clean up the mess. And so in my head, I had gone from wanting to be a twin because I had identical twin cousins. So
Oh,
I thought they were one unit. So I was like, you get to share two bodies. Like when you're four, that's how the world works.
yeah. That's a hot take right there.
Well, it's not how it works. They're incredibly different. They're like night and day. But then when I watched The Three Faces of Eve, I'm like, oh, I could just get multiple personalities. And my mom is the sort of person who's like, no, 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 sweetie. Let's actually do some research here. You don't want that, actually.
No, no, no. Let's tether you to this plane. Let's no, 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 no. Rein it in.
Yeah, so she was, I think that sort of looking a bit deeper comes from her because she was always like, go look it up. That's not what you think it is.
What a rock star. I think honestly, and I try to instill this in my children, I try to embody it, but to me, like having a skill is great, right? But that inner engine that keeps us curious, that makes us want to know more, that has us asking questions, that curiosity, not everybody has it. And I think rather than kind of innate talent or learned skill, curiosity and the desire to learn in the first place is the secret sauce to any career, any pursuit, any hobby, any endeavor. And it's really interesting to me when I meet someone who's just not curious compared to someone like you who just naturally is digging deeper into even the difference between cupcakes and muffins.
Well, do you remember you came down? We're going to go off to the dinner in New Orleans. And
I remember some of New Orleans,
I
yes.
was standing in the lobby waiting for everyone. And I found a woman there and I just started talking to her. She was like, because she was wearing this beautiful powder blue suit with these big gold
I was
buttons.
going to say the woman in blue. I actually
Yeah.
do remember this.
Lois. I remember her name too. Um, and one of the things I said to her, I'm like, oh, are you here for the conference? She went, mm-hmm. And I said, oh, the children's writing conference. She's like, no. And
You were telling us about her at dinner. Yeah.
yeah,
It
and
was some
then
other like really specific conference.
she said, word for word, I'm here for child abuse. And I knew it was one of those things as a writer. I'm like, this is the best story. Like, it will be so good over dinner. And I looked at her very sincerely and I go, you're against it, right? But I love those ones. As a writer, you kind of collect them and you keep them, and you're like, I'll use that somewhere, somehow, even if it gets put through a filter and it changes. But it's such a good moment. I'm like, these are gifts from the universe.
Yeah. Yeah, and you keep your ears open, you keep your eyes open. That kind of person, maybe so people who work as first responders or in these horrific sort of social work scenarios, they just get jaded it seems like where they don't really they detach from how it sounds. And so to them, I'm here for the child abuse, or whatever is a completely normal sentence. And then the like beautiful little children's book person is like, "Oh no."
No, I love that sort, and I love I am an adult, so I love that sort of digging into things that maybe I shouldn't sometimes. But like if there's like a weird art show that I wouldn't ever take a kid to, and I wouldn't normally go to, I'm like, I'm gonna go to it just to say I
Yeah.
did it. I told Julie recently I went to this thing that was a literary salon. It was called Naked Boys Reading, which I think is very poorly named because they were all grown men. No idea what I was walking into. And only one of them read their own diary, and he had written it when he was really deep in the throes of addiction and dating his dealer. And
Oh
there were
my
parts where he's
goodness.
like, I just can't read anymore because it's illegible. I have no idea what I wrote. Like, I was so deep in the hole.
Yeah.
So that reader was really interesting. But there was another one who read Anne of Green Gables naked. And it was so
They
weird.
were all naked?
They were, well, they got naked, but it wasn't like, I guess in my head I expected a Gypsy Rose Lee, like da da da. And they just like were like, okay, so I'm taking off my clothes now and just stripped down like faster, like a teen on prom night. It was like that was off in a second. There was no
Well, at
mystery.
least there was no false advertising with the name of the salon.
No, and I was just like, I was sitting there, and as he was reading Anne of Green Gables, which as a Canadian, I could get kicked out. It's not my favorite. I'm not a fan.
Uh-oh, the Mounties are coming for you.
And I did write a short story for an anthology, which is YA reimaginings of Anne of Green Gables. But I think that worked, the detachment from the character, that
Oh
I
my
could play
god.
with her. Um,
Yeah.
so he's reading, I'm going, oh, is that how you groom for the event? Oh, I see you're wearing some sort of hardware down there. It was just one of those things where I started analyzing the choices they made. But I do think that's the character creation part of me where I'm like, why would he do that? And I'm like, what would I do? Well, first of all, I wouldn't read naked.
Paul, you have the most fascinating way of looking at things. And I just love sitting here and just being on the sidelines for how you live your life.
Well, I also, you and I got along really well quickly. And it's because I value your directness, which
Oh,
is,
thank you.
and I find that sometimes, especially editors, have to walk a very careful line when they don't know an author, and it's almost like the hamburger way of writing an essay where it's like, I'm going to give you a compliment and then I'm going to be mean to you a little bit, but then I'm going to give you another compliment. I'm like, no, just tell me what's wrong so I can fix it. And I think as a writer, you have to get a tough skin that way because writing is personal, but the business part of it is not. Business is not a personal thing. And
How did you struggle with that? I mean, how did you sort of develop it over time, or has that just been a perspective shift that you've adopted and you just
I
go forth
was
like that?
throughout in university, and then I did my master's in creative writing. Part of it was workshopping, and there are people who lack tact. Um, and you should learn from them because you then learn how not to approach people. Uh,
Yeah.
but when people say rude things to you and they just don't think twice about it, you're like, well, I can either crumple or I can just become Teflon. And I do think it's a choice at a certain point. You're like, what? It's the who was Eleanor Roosevelt? You allow people to hurt you.
No one can hurt you without your consent, and it was Eleanor Roosevelt.
Okay, so I got the person right. I mangled the quote, but
That's okay.
I kept the sentiment. So there you go. But I thought that's really interesting, and it's also I think this about people who come at you like that. I'm like, I'm gay. I'm still living my life despite a lot of people telling me not to live it that way. Do you
Yeah.
really think I'm going to fall apart for you? It's and I did this to my younger brother's ex the first time I met him because he said something to me and I just went, "Stop right there, sweetheart," because I thought we're saying the tone for the relationship today that we'll have going forward. And I said to him, "I don't value your opinion."
Oh,
But he had said something completely like it wasn't his place to even open his mouth. And I said, "Until I value your opinion, say whatever you want, but know that I really don't care. So you can agree, disagree, it doesn't matter to me. But you have a choice. You don't have to take everyone's opinion. You don't have to value it." Now, that said, if you're working with an editor or other people, perhaps you do want to consider their perspective because often they're offering you a way to improve the manuscript or improve what you're doing, or they're giving you their best attempt. So even if it's not the way you would go forward, you might want to look at their intention and why you might want to revisit that sentence, that scene, that bit of dialogue, whatever they're telling you.
you are such a stone cold professional, and I love that perspective because some editors are prescriptive. You know, they'll say, you need to do this, that, or the other. But what I really admire about you, Paul, is that you know yourself, right? But you also know the character and the story and your intention. And so it sounds like you take the feedback and you take the spirit of the feedback, if not the letter of the feedback, and then you figure out how it works within the framework of your understanding of story, character, and self, Paul, the writer.
And I will try things that I didn't think of, and see how they land. But you you were part of it that one time, whatever the suggestion was, I said to you, "I can't do it. I tried it out. I tried it." I'm like that British one. It's like, "I tried it 3 times and it was not for me." But no, I will try and I'll be like, okay, now I know that doesn't work because I know what it was. It was making the love interest, and Julie does this really, really well. And so I've gone back and read her books to do it, making the love interest someone from childhood. I couldn't
Yeah,
get it to work in recommended reading. I kept trying to do it and it was clunky. It was a backstory dump. It just didn't work for the character. I could go in and I could make those characters they've never met before. And so
yeah.
as they got to know each other and the reader also got to know them, I got to know them a bit more.
Because he's new to town, you know, that's part of the excitement of them
We
meeting.
had a great backstory if he had been the childhood friend. It should have worked up until I wrote it and then it sucked. And I can't blame anyone else. I was the one who wrote it, so I had to own the suckage.
Yeah, I mean, that Julie does love that. And what we're talking about there to contextualize it is that we do believe when we're developing a story or we're developing character relationships that sometimes it is more compelling if there is history, right? If
Yeah.
it's a first love that we're coming back to. Obviously in like a second chance romance, they do have to have history, but it's more emotionally invested with more sort of higher stakes to the relationship if maybe they used to be childhood best friends, right? And
Ramona
now it's
Blue.
turning romantic. So that
Yeah.
is a great strategy. It just wasn't a strategy for this specific
I mean,
set of people
I
in
think
this time.
Julie could have got it to work. I don't think I could. And Julie's book where I think she does it really, really well is Ramona Blue.
That's one of Julie's personal favorites of her entire catalog.
It's a great book, and it's also really interesting because the relationship that the characters had as children is becomes a conflict for the relationship they're going to have as young adults because who they were is not who they are and where they were is not where they are, and she understood that so well about those characters. Let's make this a Julie Murphy like love podcast. Let's just talk about the books that we love best of hers. We'll start
No,
at the
what
beginning
we
and go to
do
the
love
end.
Julie. Julie is tremendous. Julie is amazing, but we are here to talk about Paul. And one of the things that we've kind of not talked about directly is that you are a gay man and you are in all of these cultures and you
Let's talk
represent
about it, Mary.
what?
Let's just talk about it in depth.
What I'm asking is, how important is it to represent that community and to write for kids who might be coming up in that community or might not even know that they will end up in that community? Is that a big factor for you as you're choosing projects or characters or coming up with your own ideas?
And one way it is a point of connection with me and my characters that I've written. Other than the 13-year-old basketball star, which no one ever says, like, you wrote a straight boy. I'm like, yes, I did. Thank you for noticing. And he was believable. The awkward dance scene, I was the one who brought the awkward to the game. Um, so, one of the tenets of literature that I learned because I did study English literature was books should that have lasting power. That's one of the markers of what will make a book canonical. Um, it becomes part of the canon when it stands the test of time, but it also must have a universal appeal. So while the specific is writing queer characters for queer readers, and I love doing that, and with Cub especially, grown men would come to me and say, I never, as far as I know, it's the only book that exists in the children's market that addresses the bear community directly as main
Wow.
character. I'd love to be wrong about that, by the way, because I think there should be another, and there should have been one before mine. Um, but as far as I know, there isn't. So grown men are always, I wish I had this book when I was a kid. It would have made understanding who I was so much easier. And that's a powerful thing as a writer to come to understand that your work has touched people that way.
Yeah.
And they will tell it to me with, like, very tearfully, because they've grown up the way I did, which is understanding your body's wrong, you were made wrong, even in the gay community. You don't look like how a gay man should. You're not built like one. And I'm going, but we are. We're built like bears. They're the strongest ones. They give the best hugs.
Yeah.
But I also think that we open up a conversation for people outside the queer community. And I'm always a big allies are part of the queer community. There's a very special bond between allies and the queer community that other communities haven't created the same way. And it's a privileged relationship there. But books do appeal to them. And so, what I go through as a gay man and my understanding of love and desire and attraction shouldn't be outside the realm of what someone who's not gay understands. So I
Yeah.
do think about that as well, because I do want people to understand where I'm coming from. I do want them to understand what I've experienced, what my characters have experienced, what we bring to the game, and to make those points of connection for themselves. So while, yes, on the surface, there are queer books for queer readers, I hope that I broaden the appeal to every reader.
Yeah. Every time I talk to you, and I'm privileged to talk to you, I am just bowled over by how deeply and thoughtfully you consider all of your intentions and all of your actions. And I
You
would
give me too
love
much
to
credit.
not.
You could look at my personal life, Mary. I don't think about things a lot sometimes.
Well, you just called me direct, so text me, run your situation by me, and I will tell you the truth.
Oh, Julie got out of me in so recommended reading launched in Kansas, and her first question is like, so tell us how you're getting back with your ex, Paul. And I'm like, listen, all of you romance readers were not second chance romance believers, apparently, because you were all dumped the guy again. And I'm like, listen, hear me out. You don't know my life. I'm a Jerry Springer episode.
Yeah, Julie will absolutely call you out on it. You're getting back with your ex?
Yeah, it's
Do you
great.
really think that's a good idea?
Well, I don't care, actually. Who doesn't like to run up in something familiar?
Oh my goodness.
We didn't split because of problems between us. He was a workaholic that the pandemic destroyed work, and he did not handle that well. Um,
Oh, so he lost his identity and went into free fall?
yeah, and I was just like, when you figure it out, find me again. And you know, now it's turned into the Let's Dive into Paul's Love Life podcast.
You brought it up.
I did.
Well, actually, Julie brought it up.
Yeah, well, it was but it is interesting to think, like, I've decided to lead the rom-com life. I'm just going to get that man back.
What's next for you? Is there anything that you can talk about, that or any appearances that you have coming up?
Well, Bittersweet, we are working again on
We
something
are.
that will be really fun. Um,
We are.
it involves maple syrup, which has led me up to the maple syrup farms.
Oh,
So
you've already gone?
it's tapping season.
It's well, obviously.
It's tapping season. The weather's changing. It's like very cold at night, very warm in the day. So the syrup, the sap is flowing.
The sap is flowing. I was gonna make a really bad, like, tapping joke, but,
It was right
we
there.
don't.
Well, we don't need the low hanging fruit. um, no, but I do have a picture book coming next year, which is exciting. I've never done a
Tell
picture.
me about your picture book.
So it is about a boy who's determined to catch a fairy and a little girl who is going to squish his dreams. But he does find a fairy in the bottom of a potato chip bag, eating the potato chip crumbs, and he's fat and hairy and like a bear, like the male bear, the gay
Yeah.
bear. So I called it the bear fairy. And I keep saying it's the universal story of leave me alone to eat my chips. Everyone can relate. But it is one of those stories about what you find might not be what you wanted. So kind of
Yeah.
meeting people at where they are versus where you expected them to be. Although I think kids will take whatever they want from it. My nephew read The Three Little Pigs. When the teacher said, "What's the moral of the story?" He was like, "No one can resist bacon." Like readers just take what they resonate with.
I resonate with the little girl coming around and, like, crushing the little boy's dreams.
Yeah, she was just, and she's even. Am I allowed to swear, Mary?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. The editor, when she read it, goes, "She's a real bitch." And I said, "I know, I wrote her." And she's like, "Well, she is." And I was like, "I love you. We can work together any day."
I love it because my daughter, I mean, I'm not gonna say that about my own child, but I often say my daughter Ella is 4 right now. I often say that she would be the leader of the zombie apocalypse, but not like the human resistance, not the people trying
Oh,
to survive, right?
I don't understand why one would want to survive it. I'm like,
No,
it
absolutely not.
never
I
gets
would
better.
sacrifice myself first thing because what then? The next day you wake up and have to do the whole sweaty thing all over again and you don't know where your food is coming from. There's no hot
I'm
water.
not, I just don't have a stomach for killing either, even if they're dead already.
Oh,
It's just not.
that's not my particular objection to the scenario.
I'm also like, they're gonna get me. I'm not a fast runner. It's
Yeah.
there's a lot
Like,
of
why
reasons
even bother? Why even bother? What is waiting for you? Certainly not a spa treatment and a three-course meal, you know?
well, to bring it back to stories, one of the things I love in thrillers or that sort of genre is when it's getting to the point where the killer's going to get you and the two people stop and they're like, "You know what? Let's just get it on." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm very turned on in those moments too." And I just want one writer, thriller writers, if you do this, please do this for me and send me the book, for them to be like, "We're going to die. Let's have sex." Like, let's just
Yeah.
call it out as what it is.
Yeah. I mean, this might be the last thing that we ever do.
Yeah, so it's like, let's just, meanwhile, I'd be like, let's go to the freezer, let's find a cheesecake like the Golden Girls, and let's gossip. And then we'll die.
For me, I would go to the like high-end seafood place that like sells to
Ooh,
restaurants and just like the uni, the caviar, all of the sushi grade tuna, like the crab legs.
you're high
That would be
end.
my splurge.
I'd be like, let's get the Twinkies. Let's just, those zombies won't get me because my blood sugar is gonna first.
Well, with all the crab and stuff, my cholesterol would be very unhealthy to
Yeah,
eat.
dude, let them eat that.
My final act of resistance. All right, Paul, I could genuinely talk to you all day. And there have been beautiful days in my life when I have gotten to talk to you most of the day, like in New Orleans. I will never forget getting to launch recommended reading in such a setting. You are just a joy, and I love the way that you see the world. It truly is wonderful to know you. Where can people find you?
I do have a website, paulcoccia.com. but I'm at Paul J. Coccia on social media. I use Instagram the most. I like the visual aspect because it's different from writing.
Yeah. Wonderful. So everybody check out recommended reading, and can you share a title for your amazing sounding picture book?
It's called The Bear Fairy.
You did say that.
I
And
wasn't
check out
very clever. I went for like, I'm like, that's who he is. That's the title.
Hey, it does what it says on the box. Check
Yep,
out the Bear Fairy next year. Check out Paul's entire bibliography on his website, paulcoccia.com. And Paul, it was an honor to have you. Thank you so much for coming on.
it was all my pleasure, Mary. Anytime you ask me, I'll come. I love you.
I love you too. And I love you, my listeners. This has been the Thriving Writers Podcast. Here's to a good story.